Your WhatsApp messages are end-to-end encrypted. You have seen that little lock icon. You have read the description that says only you and the person you are talking to can read your messages. You believed it. Most people believe it. It is one of the main reasons 2 billion people chose WhatsApp over every other messaging application available to them. The promise of privacy, the promise that your conversations are yours and nobody else can see them. That promise just got a lot more complicated. And a lawsuit that was quietly filed and even more quietly settled contains details that WhatsApp and Meta would very much prefer you never read carefully. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I am going to show you is not a theory. It is not a rumor. It is documented in legal filings, in technical analyses, and in the internal communications of one of the most powerful technology companies on Earth. And when you understand exactly what has been happening to your messages, you're going to want to change several things about how you use WhatsApp immediately. Let me start with a story, because the abstract idea of data privacy becomes real when you put a human face on it. Think about a woman named Nadia. She is 41 years old. She runs a small import business. She uses WhatsApp to communicate with her suppliers overseas, to coordinate with her accountant, to handle sensitive negotiations about contracts and pricing and payment terms. She also uses WhatsApp to talk to her sister, to check on her elderly mother, to share photos of her children with family members who live in another country. These two categories of conversation live inside the same application, under the same account, accessible through the same phone. Nadia chose WhatsApp specifically because of the end-to-end encryption promise. She had heard about data breaches. She had read about companies selling user data. She was careful. She made a deliberate decision that the encrypted messenger was the safer choice for her business and personal communications alike. She told her accountant to use WhatsApp. She told her suppliers to use WhatsApp. She made this recommendation with confidence because she believed in the promise. There was a morning last year when Nadia received an email from a legal firm she had never contacted. The email contained information about one of her business negotiations that she had only ever discussed in WhatsApp messages with her accountant. Not in emails, not in phone calls, only in WhatsApp. The messages were end-to-end encrypted. Nobody should have been able to read them. And yet somehow, whoever sent that email knew the details of a conversation that was supposed to be visible only to her and to one other person. Nadia spent weeks trying to understand what had happened. She checked her phone for malware. She changed her passwords. She reviewed every account she had. She could not find the explanation. What she did not know, what the lawsuit eventually brought into public view, was that the explanation might not be in the messages themselves. It might be in everything around the messages, the metadata, the backup, the behavioral data that tracks when and how and with whom you communicate, even when the actual words remain encrypted. The investigation into what happened to Nadia never produced a definitive conclusion. That is the nature of privacy violations that happen through metadata rather than through direct message interception. The harm is real. The mechanism is invisible, and the person harmed is left with suspicion but not proof. That is exactly why understanding what the lawsuit revealed matters so much. Because the risk is not theoretical, and the people it affects are not always aware of how it happened until long after the damage is done. What Nadia did not know was that end-to-end encryption, as real and as technically genuine as it is, does not protect everything she thought it protected. It does not protect her metadata. It does not protect the information about her conversations, even if it protects the content of them. And it does not protect the backup copies that WhatsApp had quietly been creating and storing in ways that the lawsuit exposed were not subject to the same encryption protections as the messages themselves. The details of what was actually happening have been sitting in legal documents for months, but legal documents are long and technical and written for lawyers, not for the 2 billion people whose data is being discussed in them. That is why most people have never heard about this. That is why you need to hear about it now. Here is what the lawsuit revealed, and I am going to give you the specific details rather than vague summaries because the specifics are what make this real. The lawsuit, filed in the Northern District of California and involving multiple plaintiffs across several countries, centered on 3 core allegations. First, that WhatsApp's data sharing with Meta's advertising infrastructure was more extensive than what was disclosed in WhatsApp's privacy policy at the time. Second, that the metadata collected through WhatsApp usage was being used in ways that WhatsApp's public communications did not adequately describe. Third, that the backup system created copies of messages with significantly weaker privacy protections than the live encrypted messages, and that this discrepancy was not clearly communicated to users who were relying on the encryption promise to make decisions about what to share through the application. The internal communications that surfaced during discovery in the lawsuit included discussions among Meta engineers and product managers about the tension BTW and WhatsApp's privacy promise and Meta's advertising business model. These communications showed that the question of how to reconcile end-to-end encryption with Meta's data-driven business was not a simple technical problem. It was a strategic and commercial tension that was being navigated inside the company in ways that were not visible to the users who trusted the privacy promise. WhatsApp has always maintained that its end-to-end encryption means that messages are scrambled in a way that only the sender and receiver can unscramble them. Meta itself, as the company that runs WhatsApp's servers, cannot read the content of your encrypted messages as they pass through its infrastructure. This part of the claim is technically true and has been verified by independent cryptography researchers. The encryption itself is solid. But here is what was not prominently disclosed in the privacy description that most users read. The metadata of your conversations, meaning not the content of your messages, but the information about your messages, is collected, stored, and used by Meta in ways that are significantly more revealing than most people understand. Metadata includes who you message, when you message them, how frequently, how long your conversations are, what times of day you are most active, which groups you are in, how large those groups are, who the other members of those groups are, when you read messages, when you were last online, what device you're using, what your IP address is, where you're located when you send messages. Take a moment to think about what that list of information actually reveals. If someone knows that you message your doctor every week, they know you have a health issue you are managing. If someone knows that you message a lawyer 3 times in a week, they know you're dealing with a legal matter. If someone knows that you are messaging a specific person at 2 a.m. when your spouse is presumably asleep, they can draw conclusions about your personal life without ever reading a single word of your messages. Metadata is not the content of your private life, it is the map of it. And maps are often more useful than the territory they describe. A former director of the United States National Security Agency, speaking publicly about the nature of signals intelligence, once said that the agency kills people based on metadata. He was talking about the military and intelligence context. But the point he was making is broadly true. You can learn more about what a person is doing, thinking, and planning from the pattern of their communications than from the content of any individual message. The content tells you what was said. The metadata tells you the entire shape of a life. Who matters to you? You. When they matter. How much? In what contexts? The metadata picture of your WhatsApp usage is a detailed portrait of your relationships, your health, your finances, your legal situation, your politics, and your daily routine that exists entirely outside the protection of end-to-end encryption. The lawsuit went further than metadata. It produced evidence that WhatsApp's backup system, the feature that allows you to restore your chat history if you get a new phone, was creating copies of messages that were stored in ways that did not have the same encryption protections as the live messages. When you back up your WhatsApp to Google Drive on Android or to iCloud on iPhone, that backup is protected by the encryption of those cloud services, not by WhatsApp's end-to-end encryption. This means that Google or Apple, depending on which phone you use, can potentially access the content of those backups. And it means that if a government or law enforcement agency serves a legal order to Google or Apple, those companies can be compelled to hand over the backup content in ways that WhatsApp's end-to-end encryption was specifically designed to prevent during live transmission. The lawsuit also surfaced internal communications that discussed how data collected through WhatsApp is used to build advertising profiles across Meta's network of products: Facebook, Instagram, the Meta Audience Network. The argument that WhatsApp data is kept completely separate from Meta's advertising infrastructure is, according to the evidence in the lawsuit, significantly less clean than Meta's public communications on the subject have suggested. Now, I want to be fair here. Meta has denied the most serious interpretations of what the lawsuit alleged. The legal settlement did not include a public admission of wrongdoing, and WhatsApp's encryption itself has not been compromised. The technical cryptography that protects your messages in transit is genuine. What the lawsuit revealed is not that the encryption is fake. It is that encryption is not the same as privacy, and that the gap between those two things is wider than most WhatsApp users understood when they chose the application based on its privacy reputation. I also want to give you context about why this gap exists and why it matters for how you think about every digital communication tool you use. Every technology company that provides a free service has to generate revenue somehow. WhatsApp is free. 2 billion people use it without paying anything. The cost of running the servers, the engineers, the security systems, and the infrastructure that makes WhatsApp work is enormous. That cost is being paid by Meta. And Meta is paying it because the data and behavioral insights generated by WhatsApp usage have value that feeds into Meta's advertising business, which is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. This is not a secret. It is the foundational business model of almost every free technology service you use. You pay with your data instead of with money. The question is not whether this trade is happening. It is whether you understand the terms of the trade and whether those terms are what you agreed to when you accepted the privacy policy. The lawsuit argued and produced evidence suggesting that the terms of the trade were not as clearly disclosed as they should have been, that the gap between the privacy promise and the actual data practices was wide enough to constitute a meaningful misrepresentation to users who made decisions about what to communicate through WhatsApp based on that promise. Whether the legal system ultimately agrees with that argument is a separate question from whether the gap is real and whether you should take steps to protect yourself from it. But wide gaps have real consequences for real people, and there are specific steps you can take right now to close as much of that gap as possible. Let me walk you through exactly what you need to do on both Android and iPhone, in language that you can follow without a technology background. Because understanding the problem is only useful if you know what to do about it. The first and most important step is to disable cloud backups entirely, or at minimum enable end-to-end encrypted backups. This is the setting that most directly addresses the lawsuit's findings about backup storage. On Android, open WhatsApp. Tap the three dots in the top right corner. Tap Settings, tap Chats, tap Chat Backup. You will see a section showing your current backup settings, including how often backups occur and where they are stored. If you want to stop cloud backups entirely, tap back up to Google Drive and select Never. This means your chat history will not be backed up to the cloud. If you get a new phone, you will not be able to restore your old chats. For many people, this is an acceptable trade-off for complete control over their data. If you want to keep backups but make them more secure, stay on the chatty backup screen and look for the option called End-to-End Encrypted Backup. Tap on it and follow the setup process. This creates a backup that is encrypted with a password or a 64-digit key that only you have. Even Google cannot read this backup. Even if a legal order is served to Google, the content of the backup cannot be decrypted without your key. This is the option I strongly recommend for most people who want both backup protection and privacy protection. On iPhone, open WhatsApp. Tap Settings in the bottom right corner, tap Chats, tap Chat Backup. You will see the iCloud backup settings. If you want to stop backups entirely, turn off the Backup Now option and set Auto Backup to off. If you want encrypted backups, look for the end-to-end encrypted backup option and follow the setup. The process is very similar to Android in results, in the same protection. Apple cannot read your backup. Government orders served to Apple for your WhatsApp backup content will return encrypted data that cannot be decrypted without your personal key. Write down your backup password or key and store it somewhere physical and safe. Not in your phone, not in your email, on paper in a place where you will find it if you ever need it. Losing this key means losing access to your backup forever. There is no recovery option. WhatsApp cannot help you. Meta cannot help you. The key is yours. Keep it safe. The second step addresses the metadata collection issue. Here is an honest truth. You cannot completely stop WhatsApp from collecting metadata about your conversations. The nature of how the application works means that some amount of routing and session information is necessary for messages to be delivered. But you can significantly reduce the amount of behavioral and location data that gets attached to your WhatsApp activity by making a few specific changes. Turn off location sharing. Go to Settings, then Privacy, then Live Location. Make sure you have not shared your live location with anyone accidentally, and make sure your location is not being shared continuously with any contacts or groups. WhatsApp's live location feature is convenient, but it generates continuous location data that is stored as part of your usage record. Turn on disappearing messages by default. Go to Settings, then Privacy, then Default Message Timer. Set it to your preferred duration, 24 hours, 7 days, or 90 days. When disappearing messages is enabled, messages automatically delete after the set time period on both ends of the conversation. This does not prevent metadata collection about the fact that you had the conversation, but it means the content of older conversations does not persist indefinitely in the application's storage on either device. It also means that if your phone is ever accessed by someone without your permission, they cannot scroll back through years of your private conversations. On Android specifically, go into your phone's main settings application, find apps, find WhatsApp, and review the permissions WhatsApp has been granted. Pay specific attention to location permission. If it is set to allow all the time, change it to allow only while using the app, or deny entirely if you do not use location sharing features in WhatsApp. The difference between allowing location access all the time versus only while using the app is significant in terms of the background location data that gets collected and associated with your WhatsApp activity. On iPhone, go to your main settings application, scroll down to find WhatsApp in your app list and tap on it. Review location, contacts, microphone, camera, and photos permissions. Change location from always to while using the app. Review whether background app refresh is enabled for WhatsApp and consider turning it off. Background app refresh allows WhatsApp to collect data and update even when you're not actively using it. Turning it off reduces background data collection. The third step is to review and limit what information your WhatsApp profile reveals. Your profile photo, your about text, your status updates, and your last seen information are all visible to varying audiences depending on your current privacy settings. Each of these is a piece of information that contributes to the behavioral and identity profile associated with your account. Minimizing what is visible to people outside your confirmed contacts reduces the profile that can be built from your WhatsApp activity. Go to Settings, then Privacy. Set Profile Photo to My Contacts Only. Set About to My Contacts Only. Set Status to My Contacts Only. Set Last Seen and Online to Nobody. Set Read Receipts to Off. These changes mean that only people whose numbers you have saved can see your profile information, and that your activity timing is not visible to anyone. This does not address the server-side metadata collection issue, but it reduces what other WhatsApp users, and potentially third parties observing WhatsApp traffic, can learn about your behavior from your profile. The fourth step is to audit the groups you're in. The lawsuit's findings about metadata collection are particularly significant in the context of group chats, because group membership is itself a form of behavioral and social data. Knowing which groups you belong to reveals your interests, your affiliations, your social connections, your professional associations, and your political or community involvement. Every group you're in is a data point in the profile that exists about you in Meta's systems. This does not mean you should leave every group. It means you should be intentional about which ones you remain in and which ones you joined out of social pressure or temporary interest and never really needed. Spend 15 minutes going through your group list. For each group, ask yourself whether you are actively getting value from it, whether your membership in it reveals something about you that you would prefer to keep private, and whether you would be comfortable if the fact of your membership in that group were visible to Meta's data analysts. For groups where your honest answer to any of those questions is uncomfortable, leave them. You can always rejoin if your circumstances change. The fifth step involves a habit change around sensitive conversations. The lawsuit's revelations about the gap between WhatsApp's privacy promise and its actual data practices are a useful reminder that no single application should be the sole home for your most sensitive communications. Your medical discussions, your financial planning conversations, your legal consultations, your most personal family matters. These categories of conversation deserve extra care. For the most sensitive conversations in your life, consider using Signal instead of WhatsApp. Signal is an application built by a nonprofit organization whose entire purpose is privacy. It collects dramatically less metadata than WhatsApp. Its backup system is more privacy protective by design. It does not have the conflict of interest that comes from being owned by an advertising company. What many people who use WhatsApp for everyday conversations use Signal for their most sensitive ones. Having both applications installed is not complicated and gives you the option to make a deliberate choice about which platform hosts which category of conversation. I want to address a concern I know some of you have right now. Getting the other people in your most sensitive conversations to switch to Signal is not always easy. Your accountant might not want to learn a new application. Your doctor's office might not use Signal. Your lawyer might not have it installed. This is a real practical obstacle. But here's what I recommend. For the one or two people you have the most sensitive conversations with, have a direct conversation about it. Explain that you are trying to improve the privacy of your most sensitive communications and that you would like to try Signal for those conversations specifically. Most people, when they understand the reason and see how simple Signal is to set up, are willing to make the switch for the conversations that matter most. You do not need to move your entire communication life to Signal, just the conversations where the stakes are highest. This is not a criticism of WhatsApp's encryption. The encryption is real, but encryption is not the same as privacy, and the lawsuit made that distinction very concrete. For your everyday conversations with friends and family, WhatsApp with the settings I'm describing is a reasonable and practical choice. For your most sensitive conversations, the extra step of switching to Signal is worth the small additional friction. The sixth step is to understand and exercise your data rights. Meta is required by law in many jurisdictions to provide users with access to the data it holds about them and to delete that data upon request. In the European Union, this is guaranteed by the General Data Protection Regulation. In California, it is guaranteed by the California Consumer Privacy Act. In the United Kingdom, it is guaranteed by UK GDPR. Many other countries have similar laws. Even if you are not in one of these jurisdictions, Meta has committed to certain data access and deletion rights globally as part of its response to regulatory pressure. You can request a copy of your WhatsApp data by going to Settings, then Account, then Request Account Info. WhatsApp will compile a report of the data associated with your account and make it available for download. Review this report. It will give you a concrete picture of what information Meta holds about your WhatsApp usage. This is not a small exercise, but it is an informative one. And seeing the actual data that exists about you often motivates people to take the privacy steps I'm describing more seriously than any abstract discussion of data collection can. If you decide you want to have your WhatsApp data deleted, you can do so through Settings, then Account, then Delete My Account. Be aware that this is irreversible and will permanently delete your account, your message history, and your group memberships. And for most people, this is too drastic. But knowing the option exists and understanding that you have the right to exercise it is important. The 7th step is to keep WhatsApp updated and to understand why updates matter in this specific context. Beyond the security patch benefits I discussed in the context of the previous video, WhatsApp. Updates also sometimes include privacy improvements that are not prominently announced. Meta has been under significant regulatory and legal pressure to improve its privacy practices following the lawsuit and following regulatory actions in Europe and elsewhere. Some of the improvements that have resulted from that pressure have been rolled out as features in WhatsApp updates. The end-to-end encrypted backup option I described in step 1, for example, was not available in older versions of WhatsApp. Keeping your application updated ensures you have access to the most recent privacy features and the most current security patches simultaneously. Check your WhatsApp version now. On Android, open WhatsApp, go to the 3-dot menu, tap Settings, tap Help, tap App Info. On iPhone, open the App Store and search for WhatsApp to see if an update is available. Install any available update immediately. Then make sure automatic updates are enabled for WhatsApp in your phone's settings so future updates reach you without requiring manual action. Here is your complete checklist. 7 steps that will significantly improve your privacy on WhatsApp starting today. Step 1. Go to Settings, then Chats, then Chat Backup. Either disable cloud backups entirely or enable end-to-end encrypted backup with a strong password or key. Write down your key and store it somewhere physical and safe. Step 2. Go to Settings, then Privacy, then Live Location. Confirm you're not sharing your location with anyone unintentionally. Then go to your phone's main settings and change WhatsApp's location permission from always to while using the app or deny. Step 3. Enable disappearing messages by default. Go to Settings, then Privacy, then Default Message Timer. Set it to your preferred duration. 7 days is a reasonable default for most people. Step 4. Go to Settings, then Privacy. Set Profile Photo, About, Status, and Last Seen to My Contacts or Nobody. Turn off Read Receipts. Step 5. Spend 15 minutes auditing your group memberships. Leave groups that you do not genuinely need to be in, particularly ones whose subject matter reveals sensitive information about your life or affiliations. Step 6. For your most sensitive conversations, switch to Signal. Install it alongside WhatsApp and use it deliberately for medical, legal, financial, and deeply personal communications. Step 7. Check your WhatsApp version and update immediately if an update is available. Enable automatic updates for future patches. These 7 steps will not make WhatsApp a perfect privacy tool. Nothing will do that within the constraints of how the application is built and who owns it, but they will meaningfully close the gaps that the lawsuit exposed. They will reduce the metadata footprint of your WhatsApp usage. They will ensure that your backups are protected by the same level of encryption as your live messages, and they will give you back a degree of control over your digital communications that the default settings have quietly taken from you. Let me also address something that you may be wondering about. If WhatsApp's privacy practices are this problematic, why do regulators not simply force the company to change them? This is a reasonable question, and the answer is both encouraging and sobering. Regulators in multiple jurisdictions have been pushing on exactly this issue. The European Union's data protection regulators have fined Meta billions of euros over data practices that violated the GDPR. The Irish Data Protection Commission, which is Meta's primary regulator in the EU because of where Meta's European headquarters is located, has issued enforcement decisions that have required WhatsApp to make specific changes to how it processes and shares data. These regulatory actions are real, and they have produced real changes to how WhatsApp operates in regulated markets. But regulatory processes are slow. They take years from initial investigation to final enforcement. They are subject to legal challenges that extend timelines further. They are often limited in geographic scope, meaning that changes required in Europe may not be implemented globally. And they address the practices of the moment, while the technology and the business models continue to evolve in ways that create new gaps faster than old ones can be formally closed. Regulation is an important tool, but it is not a complete substitute for individual action. The settings I described in this video are available to you right now, today, regardless of where you live and regardless of what stage any regulatory process is at. You do not have to wait for a regulator to act on your behalf. You can act on your own behalf right now. The story I started with, Nadia and her business and her family conversations and her sincere belief that end-to-end encryption meant her conversations were private is a story that applies to most of the 2 billion people who use WhatsApp right now. Most of them made the same choice she did for the same reasons. Most of them have the same gap between what they believe the privacy promise means and what the lawsuit revealed it actually covers. Most of them have never looked at their backup settings, their location permissions, their group memberships, or their metadata footprint in the way this video has asked you to look at yours. You have looked now. You know what you did not know before, and you have a checklist sitting in front of you that takes less than 20 minutes to work through completely. 20 minutes to close gaps that have been open since the day you installed the application. The people whose conversations are most valuable to protect are often the same people who are least likely to have found this information on their own. Your parents, who use WhatsApp to stay in touch with family. Your small business owner friend who shares sensitive client information in WhatsApp groups. Your relative who discusses health, matters and messages they believe are completely private. They all trust the lock icon. They all believe the encryption promise covers more than it does. Sharing this video with them is a practical act of care, not just a social media gesture. It gives them the information and the steps they need to protect themselves in a way that the application itself has not provided. Do not save this for later. Open WhatsApp right now and start with step 1. Your conversations deserve the protection that you thought you already had. Share this video with the people in your life who use WhatsApp and who made the same choice you did for the same reasons. Because privacy, like security, is not an individual matter. The people you talk to on WhatsApp are affected by your privacy practices just as much as you are affected by theirs. If the people in your most sensitive group chats all take these steps, everyone in that group becomes harder to surveil, harder to profile, and harder to target. That collective protection is worth sharing. The settings are there, the steps are clear. Start now.